is all about. That's some pretty good footage right there.
Jumping right on in, we have 2 points into Main's Hum and 3 points into Action at a Distance. This helps spread some damage to more enemies, and that little bit of shield capacity doesn't matter because we're using a Guardian Angel, which is low capacity. We also have 5 points into Gamma Ray Burst, which will give us 50% gun damage, which translates over to ordnance damage, and 36% gun damage based on how full our overshield is with Creative Overflow, which is an easy 3-point pickup. Now, we're not going to lean fully into overshield because I've noticed it can be very inconsistent, and there's actually just flat out better skills to spec into further down the green tree, which I'll be showing very soon. And I actually put 2 points into Resonance Cascade, which adds 30% damage to action skill damage, aka Nuclear Winter, and 3 points to get our cooldown back as quickly as possible with Confirmative Reality. We also get a free 40% debuff if the enemy is entangled and inside of the Flux Generator or inside of the Halo Generator. And every time you reactivate the skill, which you're going to be doing a lot with this build, you get a bonus 50% radiation damage on the next shot. And on crits, this is huge, you get 4 ammo back 15% of the time. Now we're using multiple pellets to help increase that proc chance, and the ordnance I'm using also uses a lot of explosions, and you get bonus radiation from Meltdown at the bottom of the green tree, which is a flat 40% bonus to all damage dealt as radiation, on top of the cryo damage you'll do most of the time. We didn't put too many into refraction, but it is nice to get that ricochet chance on non-Jacobs weapons. It helps spread damage even more. And of course, 21% crit damage, which is actually much more than 21% because of the way crit damage is calculated into this game. For the next row, this will be mainly for quality of life and survivability, as well as converting overshield into damage with 4 out of 5 in distribution function. 24% damage of all damage dealt goes to shield and overshield regen during action skill use, which is pretty much all the time with this build because we can get our cooldown back literally within 1 second. And to add a little bit of extra survivability, we actually put 2 points into generic lifesteal, which is the skill to the left of this. The reason why is because we use a very low capacity shield, and when that shield breaks, getting that little extra health boost, then shield boost, comes in handy a lot because you don't need your action skill to get that lifesteal. And during those small periods of time where you're not using your action skill, it just keeps you going. And of course, the cherry on top is going to be the Halo Generator, which gives you 25% gun damage per activation, as well as a bunch of other bonuses, and it turns this build into a monster. Now, as far as gear and firmware, you specifically want 2 in Airstrike for increased splash radius and splash damage. You want 1 in high caliber for projectile speed, and then you can do whatever you want with the rest. Personally, I think Get Throwing is a better option. I just need to get that on my shield. I don't currently have that, but I will soon. easily fixable. Now, for the enhancement, you want to use a Torg enhancement, vice a Jacobs enhancement, even if you're using Jacobs weapons, because you really don't need the bonus crit chance when you're playing Harlowe, and it's better to just get the splash damage that you get from the Torg class mod and the splash radius, which actually plays a big role in the effectiveness of the ordinance that this build uses. Now, for our class mod, we are running a field scientist because you get, with my role, 4 points into periodic table flip, which is elemental damage, status application chance, and cryo effectiveness. And that cryo effectiveness actually goes a pretty long way, considering you're pretty much always doing bonus cryo damage. It just helps freeze enemies much faster, even when you're not using cryo damage, because you're doing so much bonus cryo damage. And if you know how cryo damage works, efficiency and damage go hand in hand in freezing enemies. Also, this is huge, ripple effect. Whenever you kill an enemy, you get a free chance to entangle another enemy. And when you kill an enemy, it causes an elemental explosion when they're entangled. But everything we shoot is going to be entangled with this build. So there's little explosions going off for just more bonus damage. Also, that class mod provides bonus shock damage, which then converts into radiation damage whenever you entangle an enemy. So it's great for stripping shields. Now, as far as your primary guns that you want to use besides your ordnance, you can really use just about anything you want that's good with this build, especially if it does any type of splash damage. Jacobs is always solid as fuck with Harlowe, so those are always good options there. If you don't want to lean completely on your ordnance, you always have the option to use pretty much any gun in the game, because this Green Tree Harlowe build is all about stacking just raw gun damage as is. So there's really not that many wrong choices you can go with this build. You can kind of use whatever you want. Personally, I like the GMR, but you could just as easily go for something like the Borsal Ballista. Ceramic Bod is going to be your best friend. The Rainbow Vomit's an amazing shotgun with this build. Super fun. Also, the Ceramic Bod gets 125% gun damage for every proc of the action skill. If you've seen Moxie's video, you should know about that. And of course, a complex root. Can't go wrong with the Jacobs attachment and radiation damage. Now here I'm going to actually show a pretty lackluster ordinance that is generally overlooked by most builds, actually being able to melt a vault boss. This is the chosen streamer, and as you can see here, you can just keep laying those laser beams out and they start stacking incredible amounts of damage. So that just goes to show just how strong this build is with ordnance. Now, despite the chosen streamer's performance with this build, the Ravenfire just flat out outclasses it in every regard. And right now we're actually going to describe exactly why that is. Now here you're going to see me fire the Ravenfire up into the sky so that it reaches its maximum distance before detonation. And upon detonation, you'll see 3 rows of explosions radiating out from the point of impact, or in this case, just detonation automatically. Those explosions will actually chain back almost the entire length from the character to the point of that explosion and cause hundreds of overlapping explosions. Thanks to our bonus splash radius, we're at a grand total of plus 170% splash radius. What that does is takes the base 2.4 splash radius and cranks it all the way up to nearly 6.5 meters per explosion, which means the explosive damage per detonation will actually start to overlap further towards the target, which means the target will actually get hit by about a dozen or so explosions for each shot, instead of, say, the second row of explosions. The third and maybe even the fourth row of explosions could hit larger targets. And the bosses with very large hitboxes, such as vault bosses, can easily get hit with over 20 explosions per shot, given their immense size and the pattern of explosions radiating out from the center of impact. That's per shot. Not to mention, this is a fire and forget weapon, so you can actually aim this over cover to hit enemies, and because it hits so many times, it procs so many different skills and abilities and critical chance to get the ammo back. It's pretty much guaranteed. Now, as far as specializations, of course, we're going to go pretty much all in on ordnance. Starting off with Tripwire, you get an instant 25% cooldown back on action skill use. If you run Riddle, you get up to 50% gun damage stacks, which will actually translate into ordnance damage if you look at the skill in and of itself, which is great because this encourages more aggressive gunplay with the gun. Since the rocket hits multiple times per shot, it stacks that gun damage very quickly, and it will also ramp up your crit damage, which every hit will be a crit during your action skill use. It's just an awesome skill to have, and this is the skill that gives you that 50% bonus from all gun damage, going directly into bonuses to ordnance damage. I cannot stress enough how awesome this skill is if you have a lot of ways to buff your gun damage, which of course Harlowe has that out of the ass. And of course, last but certainly not least, is Fragmentation Payload, which gives you an extra chance to proc crits. That doesn't matter so much as the 50% crit hit damage. With the way crit damage is calculated, this is basically a double buff to your damage output. This skill is incredible on Harlowe when every single shot is going to be a crit after the first shot when your action skill is going. You honestly don't need that much else in specialization. There's really no point in speccing and aiming down sight because you can't always do that. Harlowe's not a speedster. You're not going to really get much out of movement speed being converted into damage. This is the way to go when it comes to doing the most gun and ordnance damage possible. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off the rest of this video by showing some footage of the Harlowe build going through a UVH5 vault and defeating the vault boss. Hope you enjoy.
Kill me while you have shit! I'm feeling frosty!
The chisel just got chiseled.
Now it's personal!
Shiver me timbers!
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this build. The next build video I'll be doing is going to be my Invincible War Machine Amon build. Until then, catch you next time.